In this video, we're gonna go over how to make this survival ferro rod with a fatwood handle. So you've got your ferro rod there, fatwood there, and it also has 9 feet or more of SurvivorCord. All right, so here are the materials we need. We need a piece of fatwood. We need a ferro rod. We need some survival cord, at least 9 feet. Obviously, I got more than that here. And we need a keychain ring. Here we got all the tools we're going to need. So we've got a ruler and a pencil. We'll use those to measure things out. We've got a Leatherman signal. We're going to use several tools there. There's probably easier ones if you got a whole workshop kit out, but since I'm making this for use with a Leatherman Sheath survival kit, I thought it was appropriate to use that as much as possible. Got a rubber band, which we'll use to mark off an inch on the ferro rod when we get there. We've got a drill, and we got 2 bits. We've got a fatter 13/32 bit. That'll be used to drill the hole for the ferro rod. And then we've got a 1/4-inch drill bit, which will be used to drill the cross hole that will thread the survival cord through. We've got scissors. I happen to have my Leatherman micro here, but any scissors will do. And then we've got a lighter, which we'll use to clean up the ends of the paracord after we cut it. All right, the first thing we need to do is select a piece of fatwood that is the right size. So here I just grabbed a bunch out of the box. Basically the way you do this is you look at the ends like this. You need to find one that's big enough to drill the hole into the bottom into which we're going to put the ferro rod. So you see here there's a lot of little ones, like let's see here. This one is obviously too small, this one, but you know, here's a pretty good one. This one has that side's not that good, but this side is decent, not the best. This one's not bad. Let's see what else we got here. We're just looking for the right size here to drill a hole into the bottom, and I think we'll work with this piece. All right, so first thing we're going to do here is we're going to make a mark to go down 2 inches. So I'll just draw 2-inch lines here. You want to make it 90 degrees away from the end here, so we end up with flat ends, but this does not need to be precise, so close enough will be good enough. All right, now we've got our line here, and then we are going to take our Leatherman saw and we're going to just start sawing right through this. Once you cut it, you should have a piece that looks something like this. So you got about 2 inches there, and then you got 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. It can be a little bigger than that if you like, but you should end up with a piece that looks like this. All right, now we're gonna set this up to be drilled for the hole for the ferro rod. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take off any sticker that might be on the ferro rod and dispose of that. All right, then we're gonna use this rubber band to mark 1 inch down on the ferro rod. So you can sort of measure it out here and get an idea where it goes, and then just start wrapping it. Obviously, if you use a shorter rubber band, this will be a little less onerous, but this is good enough for the purposes. All right, still a little high, so I'll push that down a little bit. All right, that's about right. Next, we're going to basically drill a hole right down there through the middle like that, so that the ferro rod can go into the fatwood. To do that, we're going to use the signals all to drill that, to get a starter hole before we move over to the actual drill. So you can take out your awl like this. If you want to, you can mark with a pencil where you want the hole to go. This piece of wood is pretty even. So I'm going to put it right in the middle. And then just use your awl to get the hole going before we move down to drill. You do want to try and make this as centered as possible, where there's the bulk of the wood. So I'm just going to give myself a nice little divot there to get the drill bit into. Next. All right, we've got a piece of wood. We've got a starter hole in the top. We now want to drill a hole down parallel to these, going as straight down as possible with the wood, so that we can then put the rod inside like this. I like to do my drilling, cutting, etc. over my box of fatwood, so that keeps all the shavings, like you see right there, in there, and then later I can use them like tinder. Obviously, if you've got a tool set up at your house, you can do a lot better than this, but I'm going to go super low key and do it this way. All right, so let's get this set up here. What we're going to want to do is just, if you're going to do like me and try and keep it in the tinder box here, you know, just move stuff around so that you get roughly a flat surface that you can push the drill bit down on. I got something like that there. Now I'm going to want to go here a little bit. Going to want to go down straight. So let's see, and you'll notice that the top is not straight, so I can't go perpendicular to the top, or else it'll go sort of diagonally across like this. I want to go along here, so when I go in for the top, I'm going to want to do it on a bit of an angle relative to the top plane of the piece of wood where the hole is made. So let's see what I can pull off. Oh, and obviously I'm holding this with the Leatherman tool so that if the drill bit slips down, my fingers are out of danger. So let's give this, oops, let's give this a shot. I'm going to actually flip this around because it's getting a little hard to hit that angle from this way. So do that. All right, now remember again, I'm not going flat with the surface. I've got to go parallel with the sides, the vertical sides. All right, as we do this, we'll check periodically, see how much farther we've got to go. And as you can see there, that's only a little bit in, but I don't like that angle. You see the angle is going to go through and out the side. Let's see if I can fix it. This may be a botched attempt here, but let's see what we can do. We can see we've got the wood popping out there. That is not a good sign. Might still be workable, but not great. Let's go ahead and get down there and see what happens. buried. So let's see here. Not loving the angle, not loving how thin that got and how that kind of bowed out, but looks like it'll work. So, like I said, this isn't really a precise art here. We're being a little rough and, you know, sort of on purpose. So I think we can move ahead with that. We need to get a little smidge more out of there. Let me do that and then we'll move on. That is some really oily shavings there. Make great tinder. All right, let's see what we got here. Yep, we might have went a little too deep, but I think we can make it work. All right, so next we've got to drill a hole through. This is going to be the cross hole. The purpose of this hole will be to make a hole that goes through the wood and allows you to go through the hole that you see in the ferro rod here, and we're going to thread the paracord through that. So we need to go with this ferro rod, and I'll link it in the description below. With this ferro rod, we need to be measuring from the bottom. So when I say the bottom, I mean the bottom of the piece of wood going up. We're going to need to be 5/8 from the bottom of the fat wood. And we want to make sure that we go through this hole down here. So 5/8 this way, this way, this way, 5/8 going down the length. And then the trick here is just making sure we're going through the center. So the diameter of this hole going down the middle here in which the ferro rod will sit. And once you do that, you're going to thread this. So let's give this a shot here. So we want to measure 5/8. And we'll do that from the end where the hole goes in. So we're going to want to start on one of these sides here. So let's see, 5/8. It's right there. So again, this doesn't need to be totally precise. So I'm just going to eyeball it a little bit and draw us a line here. And then we're going to want to go parallel with this down here like that. So something like that. Once again, we'll get out our awl on the Leatherman tool, and we will use that to mark a starter hole here. Again, let me just double check. So that looks pretty good, going through the middle there. And then we measured down there 5/8. So let's give it a shot. So we'll do our starter hole. All right, that should be good. Let us move on to drilling. All right, same drill as before. We're going to go over the tinder box so the shavings go right in there. I've now got the 1/4 inch drill bit in there. This is also the same drill as before. So let's go ahead and get the hole in there. So again, like before, we want this to go parallel like that across the hole. So we're just going to try and angle it. Again, I've actually sized these drills. I've sized the drills a little bit bigger than they need to be to give us a little wiggle room. So let's see how it goes. Let's take a look and just make sure we're going in the right way. It is looking pretty good. You can't see this in the camera, but I'm moving my head around to different angles to make sure I've got a good lineup of the drill and the sides of the piece of wood. The wood's a regular shape, so you kind of gotta wing it a little bit. There it is. Okay, I went through the one wall. Now we can check inside. I don't know if I can get that to focus for you, but it is looking pretty good. Roughly through the diameter with the oversized drill bit relative to what we need. We should have enough wiggle room to get it through. All right, so there we go. We made it all the way through. Let's get our drill out. Whoops. Get our drill out here. All right, now the moment of truth. Let's clear out any of the debris. You know what? I'm gonna go back in on the other side just to clear that out. There we go. All right. Tap, tap, tap. Get it out. Let's see what we got here. Let's get this out of the way and we'll get our ferro rod back. All right. So what we should be able to do is once you've got it in there, you should be able to spin the ferro rod and see the light coming through. And I think I got it there for you. See this? There it is. You can see that hole right through. It's a circle. That's good. So that's it. We drilled a hole in the right spot. All right, next we're going to get about 10.5 feet of this SurvivorCord. And the way I'm going to do that is simply by measuring about 12 and then folding it repeatedly until I have a total of 10 folds here. Then I'll go ahead and add another 1/2 fold to get the 10.5. So all you got to do is keep running it down like this. And I am not actually even counting now, so I will stop to do that in a second. All right, so up to this point, let's see how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Great. One more. All right, so there's our 10 down to this fold, right? And then we'll add another half. So that's going to be about that much. Okay. Now that's where we're going to cut it. So we've got our serrated blade here on the signal. Go ahead and cut that, and we got a clean cut. Sometimes the snare, especially in the SurvivorCord, the SurvivorCord has several different kinds of cord, but the one most important to us for our purposes today is going to be the snare. Sometimes that doesn't cut fully. If that's the case, then you're simply going to take this out and use these wire clippers right there to cut it. In this case, clean break, so no need to do that. All right, we're going to try and use as close to 10 feet as we can, but sometimes when you're wrapping up the handle, you might end up with a little too much at the end. It's sort of a rough measurement. I haven't quite figured out the perfect magic to it, but for the beginning here, there's one thing we're going to do that's going to help us thread it through the hole. So we've got this extra 6 inches or so here. What we're going to do first is we're going to roll back the casing, the outer sheath of this. And we're going to get about 6 inches of that. So essentially the whole inside of the cord here. And we're actually just going to cut that. So my finger is at right where we're going to cut it. So we'll do what we did before. And we'll use the serrated blade in the signal. Let's get that out and we'll cut this right off. There you go. So here's the example of the snare not cutting, and the snare is the most important thing we need. So let me finish these things that aren't the snare, and then we will take out our wire cutter, as mentioned before, and we will clip that right there. All right. So this is very fine and hard to see, but we're going to use this to thread this through. All right, so let's set that aside. Put that right there for now. Now we're going to want the sheath to go back off, or go back down. So I find if you just sort of smooth it out like you just saw me do, you'll have the sheath at the end here like this. Now if you feel this, I don't think you can see it very well, but if you feel it, you're going to feel that this is just empty casing now. There's nothing inside there. The next thing we're going to do is we're simply going to take this and we're going to wrap it around this a bunch of times and shrink it down as small as we can. This is what we're going to use to thread it through. And so you want to get this as small as possible. What I find is there's going to be a little puffy end at the end. We will deal with that in a second with some scissors. But, oops, I think I'm using this up a little bit too much. Got to leave some to go through. So let me just do a little less here. All right, so we're going to wrap that around. And then I'm just going to end this with just a simple overhand knot. Nothing complex. Once that's on there, though, it's real hard to get off because this is super thin snare wire. So let's see, is that good? You should be able to pull it and it shouldn't come off. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get out our scissors. And you see this little puff here? That puff can block you when going in the hole. So we're going to give it a haircut. And just try and get this down to a very small size. If you don't cut it enough, you can always try again, so it's not really a do or die type situation. All right, so now we've got the snare wire right here, very thin. We've got the casing wrapped with the snare wire, pulled as small as we can get it, right? Then there's going to be a bit of casing here that's empty, and then the full cord starts here. So remember, we left that at about 10 feet. Next, we're going to thread it through. So first thing, want to make sure that this lines up internally so that when we look through, we can see the hole. Not quite sure if that's coming through there, but I can see through to the bottom of the table, through the fatwood, and through the hole in the ferro rod. So let me just line that up. All right, next, we're going to take the wire we just wrapped around, and we're going to thread that through first. So it can be a little tricky sometimes because the fatwood hole is bigger, but it goes through there pretty easily. Once you got that through, just go on the other side in and pull. That's it. Once you have it through, what I like to do is get it all the way through to the point where you feel the full cord. We are eventually going to trim this down here, but for now, just about an inch in from where the full cord starts, I'm going to tie a knot, and it'll just be a simple overhand knot for now. We'll worry about fastening this tighter later. And that's just going to hold it here for me while we do the next part, which is adding in the handle out of this cord. All right, to make our paracord handle, we're going to be adapting a quick deploy paracord key fob made by Paracord Crafts. I'll link that video below. But we're going to adapt that to this structure here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure about 2 inches out, right, to there. That we're just going to leave at the end to tie this off at the end. With the inch you have here, plus this, that'll be enough to tie it to the side and keep it relatively snug against the fatwood ferro rod. All right, next we're going to go down to the end here. We're going to get about 4 inches, and we're basically just going to make an S, where each segment of the S is 4 inches long. All right, so that's the first segment. All right, so now if you look here, we've got a sort of long, extended horizontally S. Once we have that, we're gonna pick it up and we're gonna start going around. Now this end here, on this side, this will end up being the part that hangs down at the bottom. We're gonna want the loop there to be relatively small because we're gonna put just the keychain ring through there. So when we make this first loop, we'll keep that in mind to keep it nice and small. So we'll go around the back of the loop, do once, and especially on these ends, you're going to want it pretty tight. So we'll do that, and now we go down, right? And we are just going to keep repeating this pattern all the way down until we get to the other end. So let's do that. So once you get into a rhythm, you can just start spinning here. That's what I'm doing now. I'm lifting this up off the table so the ferro rod doesn't keep making a lot of annoying noises, but actually, I'm guessing you can't see that. So let's go back down and just deal with the noises. All right, down, down, down. You want to keep this pretty tight so that when you get finished, it'll be a firm grip. It's not too loose. All right, especially as you get towards the ends, you want to increase the tightness because that's ultimately where it's going to come loose most quickly. We're going to use this loop at the end to tie off both this end and this end, and that'll secure our paracord handle here. So that's probably about enough. We're going to be able to pull that tighter once we get there. So now we can start going down the other way. You just angle it below the topmost loop. And then once you do that, you're going to be in the grooves going in the other direction. And we're just going to go down to the bottom the same way we went to the top. Oops. So see here, I got it a little loose. Or no, sorry, I got that tangled. Let's get that out of the way for now. We'll deal with that again at the end. All right, so let's just get to the bottom here. So now you can see it's actually pretty easy to roll. So I'm just gonna roll it, roll it. Sometimes this gets knotted like this. So when it does that, just unroll the knots. All right, we're gonna keep going to the bottom here. All right, once you get to the end here, we're going to do one more loop going back in the other direction. So again, when you get to the end, make it extra tight. I'm putting additional force here as I go down. And I'm using the other ones to sort of guide the rope, the earlier ones. And then once I get to the top, I'm going to jump over the rope and then make another loop around the edges going down. Good to keep these compact. And we're just about where I can start easily rolling again. Almost there, almost there. So for this one, I did a pretty good job of measuring this one out. Sometimes you might have extra cord at the end, in which case you would just want to thread it through and trim it. But in this case, I am just about where I need to be, all right? So we're gonna take this and we're gonna thread it through there. So I usually wait till the end to burn these off. But you're going to find that getting this end that's all messed up through that hole is going to be pretty challenging. We can make it a little bigger using the Leatherman, so that can help us a bit. Grab that. But if you do have trouble putting it through here, now's the time to grab your lighter. We'll just burn it off real quick. This will be hot for a minute, but it cools pretty quickly. See the smoke there? All right. Now it's still probably hot, so I don't know that I want to touch it. Let's blow it a little bit here. See that? All right, so it's not so hot anymore, so I should be able to get it through now. I've got the mess out of the way. The cord again, the snare cord again is the one that's sticking out there. We'll trim that at the end. But now that I've got it through there, right? All I need to do is put a little knot in here. So we'll just use a regular overhand knot. Nothing special. And this one I measured just right, so I'm not going to need any adjustments here. I'll clean this up at the end, get that snare wire that's out. Once you got that, you're through and you're good. That knot is not going to go back there. We'll pull in the bottom again to tighten the top, but first, before we do that, we got to take care of this end. So I left this uncut just because, you know, if this comes out, we might want to thread it through again. But now we do want to get rid of this excess here. So we're going to get our scissors out again. We're going to feel where the cord ends. I know this might be hard to see, but right here I'm pinching nothing. Right here I'm pinching cord. So right about here is where the cord ends. So let's cut that. There we go. Got a pretty good cut there. So let's finish that off with some fire. Get it burnt down. Get a little nub on there. All right. Now we can undo this knot. Remember, this knot was keeping it from going through, but we actually want this to go through here. So we're gonna have this go through the same hole. I usually do it in the opposite side, so there's a knot on each side. So we've got this knot on this side. Now we're gonna want the knot to go in the other direction. Again, this can be a little tricky, but in this case, our hole's pretty big. We shouldn't have too much trouble getting that through. And you can always loosen this by pulling on it with your pliers, and then we can tighten it at the end by pulling again back down here, which we will do in a second. But first, let's get that through. Once that's through, here's where you can adjust how much you want it to dangle. I like to keep it pretty tight, so that way if you want to use it, you take it like this, and then you run your sparker down the side. So I like to have it so it dangles a little bit, but it's not like this is a necklace or anything like that. It's relatively tight in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it to about where I want it. So let's say like right there. That gives you a circle of maybe what, 1.5 inches diameter, and then you just tie another knot here. Again, if you get to this point and you find that it's too long, all you got to do is trim it. We're not going to need that this time, so we should be good here. So if you tie it too loose, you saw I left a little, I left like a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch right there. It'll just snug down like this, so it'll hang a little bit lower. You can adjust how much you want to hang this by positioning this knot differently. So let's say I don't like where it is now. I'll just slide it down the rope farther, and that'll get it tighter. All right, so that is looking pretty good. All right, so we are just about at the end here of the basic survival ferro rod with a fatwood handle. Couple touches to go here. First, we can obviously take off the rubber band now. So let's go ahead and do that. Hopefully I can get it off without breaking so I can use it again. All right, that's off. Now, you might be wondering why this is not secured in there. And that's actually on purpose. This allows, both the ferro rod and the fatwood are obviously consumables, right? You could use up this fatwood, making it into tinder, and you can use up the ferro rod eventually as well. So this is designed to be replaceable. If you want to replace it, you'll simply take this off and repeat the processes to get both the ferro rod, which is just basically buying it, and this, which is cutting it and drilling it, and then you'll be able to do that. Okay. For the final touch, we're simply going to add this keychain ring to the bottom here. Before we do that, we can try and pull this down a bit. That'll tighten the top as well. So when we pull this, remember that's the original string going right down the middle of all this. So as we pull that, it tightens it up here and makes it harder to get off. So we pulled the ring down a little bit there. Now we can add this right here. What this does is it makes it harder for this to come undone unintentionally. This is quick draw because if you just pull this off down here, this will unravel, and you just untangle it, and you'll be able to use it pretty quickly. Obviously, it'll still be connected up by these knots, but that's why we use simple overhand knots. They're easy to get out. This is pretty fat, so you're never going to have trouble really grabbing that. But this ring will help this will help prevent this from coming off unintentionally. So that's why we put that on there. And that's it. We've just made a ferro rod with a fatwood handle and a SurvivorCord dongle. There you go.